Ella, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Ella Ruehsen, you're a reporter with, you're reporting with the Essex Reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I started doing this, I want to say October, November of this year, so I'm fairly new to the role of reporting on Essex specifically. And I'm a little bit of an interim person here, but it's been a pleasure getting to know Essex Town as well as Essex Junction, two really great communities. And prior to that, I had been reporting on Colchester through a sister publication. But yeah, I've been at this media outlet for the last almost 2 years.
Oh, and what's your background? Where did you come from, and how did you get involved in journalism?
Yeah, so I went to UVM for college. They actually don't have a journalism major, but on a whim, I joined the Cynic, which is the student newspaper there. Mm-hmm. And next thing I knew, it was like a huge passion project of mine. I became an editor there, did some internships locally, so here I am.
What draws you to, what's your interest in journalism?
Yeah, I think truth-telling is really important to me, and I've always thought of especially local news as kind of keeping the fabric of democracy alive, which sounds cliche, but I do really believe that particularly for the most local outlets, they keep people connected to their community, when a lot of media now is, I think people more focus on like national, global politics and news, which is important, but I think it's great to also know what's happening in your school district and what you're voting on locally, because I think that's where individuals are able to make the biggest difference.
Have you seen some of that? Have you seen examples of people like digging in and making changes on a local level at the select board? So you're covering the Essex Select Board and this Essex Junction City Council, is that right?
Yes.
Does that mean you're showing up, you're paying attention, you're at these meetings?
Yeah, I've been watching some of them remotely actually, but yeah, because I'm also the Northwest Vermont reporter, so I'm doing part-time for 2 different roles right now.
Wow.
But
okay.
I have been keeping up with pretty much everything that's gone on at City Council and Essex Town Select Board meetings.
Yeah.
And so yeah, budget stuff has been, I think, some of the biggest, obviously, conversations as we approach town meeting day right now. Yeah.
Are there any big disagreements? Are there how do people get along, or do you see the national political kind of conversation filter down into the local? Or
that's a really good question. There are definitely points of disagreement at times, and different people will stand up for what they believe in. I think that, though, it's generally all good-natured, even when sometimes it seems to get a little heated. I think that's part of the democratic process, right, is just being able to bring a variety of perspectives to the table. I actually interviewed the 2 select board candidates recently, and they're both running unopposed for 2 open seats. One of them, Kendall Chamberlain, is an incumbent, and he was talking about how he really appreciates the variety of perspectives that the board brings to the table. One of his colleagues comes from a farming background, and that influences what he has to say, whereas other people come from different backgrounds. And so, yeah, he's spoken really highly of the leadership, even if an outsider might witness, some minor squabbles. I think that's how decisions are made, with all of the considerations at the table.
You gotta have a lot of different ideas kind of butt up against each other to find where the opening is.
Yeah, but at this point, the draft budget has been finalized pretty much, and what we know now is what's going to be on the ballot come town meeting day.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the ballot. So Essex moved from floor votes on a lot of things to Australian ballot in the last couple of years, and this year there are 10 articles on the ballot. And of course the first one is the budget. There are 2 other sort of consequential budget items that seem to affect your tax rate. And then there looks like there are about 7 charter change amendments. Do you want to just give us a quick sketch of this ballot?
Sure. So my reporting hasn't touched too deeply on these charter changes, but I haven't heard a lot of controversy around those. I think they're housekeeping items for the most part that have been recommended by a committee. And then the thing that I know the most about that is an article on here is about
Capital Reserve Fund?
Yes, adding 2 cents to the capital tax rate, in addition to 3 cents that had previously been authorized. This is for the purpose, per the ballot language, of financing capital projects and equipment. So this is for large, highly specialized trucks that are expensive. It takes more than just 1 year of an operating budget savings to save up to replace those, as and a lot of planning to know, like, okay, this is like this truck's expected lifetime. This is when we might have to do a really elaborate sidewalk repaving, larger projects that require more planning and more funds than just a single operating budget can cover. So there's a really big project coming on Upper Main Street. I think that's one of the biggest things that's going to be probably pulling from the capital fund. In any case, the reason for the additional 2 cents is because so far the capital tax has been inadequate to fund all of the projects that the select board and town staff, town management have deemed critical or like very necessary. And so they have had to do a lot of transfers from the general fund to the capital budget, which I think is normal, but I think they want to rely less on doing that, and to ensure that in the future there will be less, if any, instances of borrowing that result in just unnecessary expenditures of tax dollars as a result of paying off interest on things they needed loans for. So it's kind of just making a more robust rainy day fund, I guess, is maybe a way to explain it.
Yeah, great. And then there are these other 2 articles, and you do have a little bit of coverage in the Essex Reporter about this general fund, setting aside 1% of the general fund to support Essex Human Services contributions.
Right.
And so this is a fund that would be supporting folks in human services that are working in Essex. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think possibly regionally. I wouldn't consider myself an expert on this ballot item, but yeah, those that would be eligible are local nonprofit human services organizations. I'm guessing they can apply for those funds, and yeah, the select board has opted to pull out 1% of the budget.
It doesn't actually impact it. It's an advisory referendum. And the biggest impact is the budget itself. Tell us a little bit about what the impact of this budget is on the Essex town folks.
Sure. So it is a $16 million budget, and it entails a 4.76% tax rate increase pending voter approval on town meeting day, of course. In the town, the operating budget and the capital budget will both be voted on. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head for the capital budget, but if anybody is interested in learning more, my reporting can be found on essexreporter.com. And as I mentioned, one of the select board candidates running is Kendall Chamberlain. I have a profile of him online, as well as the other candidate running for, again, an open seat, Shannon Jackson. He would be new to the select board, assuming he's elected, but he does have 3 years of experience on the local conservation and trails committee.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's what we have on the ballot. Yeah, there isn't a lot of controversy in there's no contested elections in Essex this year,
Right.
which has not always been the case, although it sounds like you're new to it. What are the big things that people in Essex are thinking about?
Yeah.
And how do you hear from people outside of attending the select board meetings?
That's a really great question. Because I'm fairly new to this, I would point to specifically this one open house that I attended. about the Upper Main Street project that I think I might have mentioned briefly earlier. So this is because currently the Essex town offices are actually located in Essex Junction. It's only been, I want to say, 2 or 3 years since the separation officially of these two municipalities. And so both municipalities are trying to define themselves as individuals and embrace like their own unique character. Essex Town is trying to move their town offices to the town and also just expand them, because right now they have had enough space for offices, but they've been using the town offices for more recreational stuff and like.
I know they move everything out of the select board to have yoga.
Yeah,
So they have
exactly.
to move everything out and then move all the meetings stuff back and
Yes.
take the room apart and
That's
put
a
it back
great
together.
example. Yeah, so I think they're needing more space, and wanting to be within the town, I think, is important to a lot of people. And with that, I think there will be also like a more robust center for municipal services. So the town office will eventually down the line, once this project is all said and done, be right next to the library and the fire station. And so anyways, at this open house, there were representatives from town management as well as the fire department and the library. There were people there with big posters and visual blueprints, which have not been set in stone, but to help people give them an idea of what to expect. And hearing from folks who were in attendance, just residents, there was a huge variety of feeling on what's to come. I think a lot of people are excited to have their town office be in town. At the same time,
Where is in town? Like when you say in town, like are we thinking, where is that? Where's the center of Essex?
80 and 90 Upper Main Street.
Okay.
It's debatable, like, is that the center? But
Yeah.
that's where it's going, and it just, like, literally will be within
Put me
town
in
lines.
context because I'm not seeing that. Put me, like, what are the landmarks around there?
I'm, like, too new to the job
Okay,
to
okay.
get into the nitty-gritty on that question.
Yeah.
But what I was going to get at is...
You keep talking and I'm going to find it on the map.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there were some folks, I'd say a lot of older Vermonters who are really attached to the character of what they know Vermont to be, are pretty resistant to changes like this, especially, and this is understandable, Essex wanting to define itself as something different than the junction. There are some residents who are concerned about building it up too much. But there are also, so I heard that perspective from some people who were in attendance at this thing, but I also heard from other people who also live in Essex that they're really excited to see this happen because there will also be a lot of mixed use space, commercial, residential, and the folks who are really excited to see this happen are talking about how we're long overdue for more housing development in particular. As we all know, there's a big shortage. So,
Cool. Yeah, it looks like it's just up the road from where the town hall, where the town offices are today. Sort of on the Essex, on the high school side of the road as you go up Main Street towards maybe the Essex Shops area. So it's still close to the junction, but I guess those are town
technically,
boundaries,
like,
yeah.
not across the
Not on the town
border.
boundaries, yeah.
I think for anyone interested in seeing exactly where those borders fall, there is a map on the town website.
Yep.
I don't have like the exact link memorized, but it has been emailed to me.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
So what's your future here? Are you sticking with this community for a little while to do your reporting, or where are you going next?
So I'll continue to be around. The timeline's not clear, unfortunately, but my role has been primarily Northwest Vermont reporter, so writing stories with a regional interest to all, I think, 4 outlets that we as a media organization have in Milton, Essex, Colchester, Essex Junction, and St. Albans.
Yep.
But so we lost our Essex reporter a few months back. She was wonderful, but so there's an opening, and I'm keeping things afloat while my editor's working on the hiring process.
Great.
Yeah.
And what's your sort of big picture vision for yourself in the world of journalism, especially given everything that's happening and the decline of local papers, sort of the lack of trust that folks have in news media? What are you hoping to bring to that?
Yeah, that's a really big question. And it's one that I feel like I myself am still contemplating on a regular basis and still thinking about, because you're right, the media landscape is changing a lot. And, there is some lack of trust in the media for good reason, right? I think a lot of minorities in particular have been failed by news outlets historically and even to this day. So I think a priority for me is definitely being mindful of that. And, but also I think some of this whole war on media is coming from the current federal administration, right? And so, and again, a lot of that is about national coverage. But yeah, we are losing a lot of local newsrooms. And I think that's where I see a lot of integrity, is in these local newsrooms where there's not as much big money involved, right? They're more connected. We have local advertisers, and we're doing things in, I guess, a more traditional way, which with the rise of social media, I guess hasn't always worked out, but I love what I do. It just feels great. I love local writing and reporting, and we'll see where I end up.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ella Ruehsen, working right now with the Essex Reporter, giving us a little overview on who you are and what you're doing. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And folks, if you want to read more of what Ella has written, you can go to essexreporter.com. Is that the right
Yes,
website?
that's-
Excellent.
yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.